Okay, we can see Finding Funding on there. Great. Okay, so my name is Analiza Perez-Gomez. I'm a librarian with the Laredo Public Libraries. And I'm part of the 2020 cohort. And I just love the community. And the projects that we did kind of kept me going over the COVID-19 emergency time period. So it really kind of fired me up. So right here, you can see Jackie Flores is another librarian. She's a children's librarian. We went together to Colorado, and we were just so happy to be there. We loved what we saw. And there you can see pre-COVID, we were all packed in the same room, which just seems incredible now. So we knew when we came back that we wanted to go forward with this. We wanted to create a makerspace because we hadn't done anything like that before. And we wanted to develop a meaningful volunteer experience especially for our teams, our teen volunteers. And we wanted to also produce board book kits that had these multimodal dimensions. So we had these 3 huge goals. And those are 2 of the pieces of the equipment that I really wanted. We have the Prusa i3 3D printer, and we have a Glowforge over here. So we took a look at what we had going for us. We have enthusiastic, hardworking staff. We have the freedom to focus on our own creative projects, so we can dictate what direction we want to take our libraries in. We have spaces that could be utilized for a makerspace, and we had successfully been awarded grants before. Now, the limitations, even though our staff have a lot of enthusiasm and are hardworking, we have limited staff, we have limited time. The spaces aren't really fitted already. They're not really designed for makerspaces already. And then again, you have to mention time and staff. Again, the limitations there, I think we're all facing those. And so it's really important to mention them. Grants may require a lot of documentation, so it's important to know that going in beforehand. So these are the 2 grants that we wrote. We wrote these applications, and they're through the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, which are funneled from federal funds through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So the Texas Reads Grant will award up to $10,000 to support projects that promote literacy and reading. When TSLAC CARES came out, those are the grants that support a variety of equipment and other tools necessary to kind of diminish the sort of lack of resources that people were experiencing during COVID-19. We applied for both, and we were awarded both. So the $10,000 was completely for the Build a Better Book project that we wanted at our library. TSLAC CARES covered a lot of different things, including circulating hotspots, laptops, production equipment for our virtual programming. But we also had a component there that included STEM kits to provide this access to kids who didn't have access, especially through the classroom. Everyone was virtual at the time. And so we were able to include some extra materials through TSLAC CARES. So it's really important when you are grant writing to tell your story. People want to be excited about something. The grant reviewers want to be excited. They have all this money and they want to be able to fund these wonderful projects. And I've noticed that Build a Better Book is just something that almost always inspires. So I think you have a really, really good chance of whatever project you're doing. It's making with meaning. And I think that's really important to convey, and to, the more we do it also, the more we can support each other. So it's important to tell your story, and it's important to develop your budget. So right here is just sort of a small part of what we purchased with our grant. And you can see it's a 3D pen kit. It includes some board books and some materials there. And on the left-hand side, you can see that some of our youngest students in our program created some materials. Well, on the left-hand side is the caterpillar from the Very Hungry Caterpillar. And his little sister, who was not even officially a volunteer, wanted to make a little bubble wand as well. So tell your story. What is your project? Why you, and why now? it's really important to tell them why your particular organization are the ones that can be trusted with this money. They also want to know what is so important about it happening right now. So of course, the statistics, census data, demographics, all relating to the needs in your community and the needs, even for the nation as a whole are really important to convey. Grammar and spelling are important. You can ruin a great application with just spelling mistakes and bad grammar. It's important to find that person who or group of people who can review your grant application. Okay, develop your budget. Read the notice of funding. So this notice of funding, every grant has one. It's going to tell you exactly what they're looking for. You're going to count yourself out if you skip that important step. Make sure you know what they want to fund, because it's a very amateur mistake to not connect your needs with the mission of a funder. Purchases must support their mission and meet project goals. Get actual quotes or realistic estimates, and that's going to go a long way. Once awarded, spend everything. Document everything. Report back to the grantor and be flexible. We learned this. I mean, we always have to be flexible, but over the past year and a half, we really got a crash course on this, right? So some of the things that we had wanted to do initially as part of our project, we were unable to do. And so we had to constantly change in order to meet the goals of our project and to fulfill our responsibility to the grantor. Being awarded is exciting. Reporting can be very tedious. So make sure you know what's required beforehand. Make sure you have enough people or enough time if you're, a one-man or one-woman show. Make sure that you can make time or you're willing to commit to making the time to document everything that you're doing. Some grants don't require that much documentation, and other grants just require a huge amount of it. So just know what you're getting into. So lessons learned. Evaluate if it's the right time to embark on the project. It's okay if the answer is no. I had decided, actually there was a grant that was for a couple of $100,000, and I thought, wouldn't that be wonderful? But I am usually a one-person show for grants, so I need to make sure that I am embarking on a project and a grant timeline that I can handle. So just know it's okay. If you can handle a $500 grant, great. Every year I kind of push myself a little bit more. So $50,000 grant is the biggest one I've gotten so far. And I might stay at that level for a while. Estimate the time you will spend on the project and then double it. Maybe triple it if there's a pandemic. Celebrate. Don't forget to show off. It's really important that people know about the good work that you're doing. And this is one that I always fall short of. It's really hard for me to boast about things. And I know it's boasting on behalf of the library and a great project, but it's still really difficult for me. So if you are not great at that, make sure you have a partner in this that is good at celebrating. Finding grants. So it's going to be different for every organization or type of organization. Schools and school districts are eligible for different things than a library might be. So you can look at companies or corporations like Best Buy or Dollar Tree, organizations like the American Library Association, foundations like to give money as well. There's lots of places that you can go and look for grants, but even like, let's say if you use Ozobots or you want to purchase Ozobots with grant funds, Ozobot has a list of different foundations and grantors that can be able to help you. And sometimes just reaching out to the vendor for sources of funding, that can go a long way as well. So my name is Analiza once again. I am passionate about helping people find the funding that they need for these really important projects. So I encourage you to reach out to me either through email or through telephone. I'm happy to review any grant application that you are writing and to give you some feedback on it for as much as that is worth. And, you know, we can also collaborate as well. Let's reach out to each other and support each other, because a lot of these granting institutions also want to see partnerships. So it's really important that we connect. I actually think that one of the reasons I got these grants was because I was able to tell them that I'm part of the Build a Better Book network. So always use those connections as much as you can. So that's the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
That's terrific info, Analiza. Does anyone have any questions? I know a number of people were talking earlier about kind of where to go after funding. So this is really helpful, I think.
I actually have a question before I talk a little bit about grants. For your both grants, do any of those grants cover, I guess, salaries or consulting or any of those services, or are they all resources?
So that's a great question. It will actually cover consulting, or it won't cover like anything through payroll, but if they're contractors, it will cover it. But that's a great question. It's actually harder and harder to find funding that will cover people, human resources. And also I found, at least for libraries, buildings, any kind of building.
That's exactly what I have found as I've been kind of expanding grant opportunities, found the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's really true. And I think that's why, Annalise, I thought you made a great point about just really thinking and being kind of honest with yourself about the capacity you have for running programs. I am notoriously bad at that, because when we see opportunities, we're like, of course we could do that and we could do all these things. And then you realize, it's a lot of work to actually implement the programming associated with some of these grants. And so really being careful how much you decide to take on and how much you go for. Because
for sure, and the feelings that you have at being awarded are totally different than the ones you have trying to make a deadline towards the end of the grant year. But
and it is so challenging when something like the pandemic comes up and really impacts what you're able to do, and really having to reinvent what you can do in order to fulfill that, your commitment to the granting
Absolutely. And somebody in the breakout room said that she was, she felt like she wasn't going to have any time to write the grant. And that's probably very true for most of us. We don't feel like we have time to add something extra. However, taking the time to write the grant is going to allow you so much more opportunity to reach not only the volunteers in our case at the library, but outside organizations that we can partner with. I would definitely say that if you have a good grasp of writing, you have basic skills, it doesn't take a poet to fill out these applications. It just takes the ability to be able to describe what you want to do, right? I found that when I've read other people's grant applications, the number one, I guess, error or mistake I see is that they're assuming too much. They're assuming that people are going to know what you want to do and who these organizations are that you're partnering with. And you really need to explain yourself well about your intentions and your goals.
It's really very good advice. That's excellent. Thanks so much, Annalisa. And Ian, I know we're a little short on time, but you've also had some success in getting some external funding, and I didn't know if you wanted to chime in for
Yes, I have a couple quick. It's perfect. It won't take long. Annalisa and Mindy's, was very comprehensive. So I'll just share a couple of my experiences and how we've gotten grants. So mine will be really quick. Just get my thing here. And sorry. All right. Good. Everyone sees my screen now. Okay. Grant ideas. Okay. So again, Mindy and Analiza went through, great comprehensive review of approaching grants and, how to actually write it and what you should be thinking about. I've been working on all of that, although these were also excellent ideas that I know I wrote down a lot of notes to think about going forward. These are just some of the grants that we've looked at. We just received a grant from also the Institute of Museum and Library Services through New Jersey libraries, I guess in conjunction with New Jersey libraries. And that was our largest one. That was about $11,000. And that one was split between resources and funds to pay part-time or contractor only consultants. So again, anybody who was like kind of officially on the public library full-time, I think, was not allowed to get paid, but you could use it for, I guess, consulting services, which was still helpful. So then just looking at the IMLS website, there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of different grants. It's amazing. There's a lot of grants there. So definitely take a look at that. They have small grants and they have large grants. New Jersey Makers Day, I mentioned earlier, it's a great organization dedicated to maker spaces in New Jersey, but I'm sure that there's some types of organizations like that in each state, possibly. And they have a lot of small grants between $250 and $1,000. So, again, when they share these presentations, you click on that link. I can always reach out to New Jersey Makers Day on somebody's behalf and ask, or just share their contact information, make an introduction, and maybe they know of other state type organizations that do what they do. Local education foundations, even though I represent a public library, we've been able to get local education foundation grants. STEAM, right, the big A in STEAM, state of New Jersey art grants are available. We haven't done that yet, but we've been working on ideas for using these types of grants. Partner with a local school, take advantage of the fact that this local school might be able to write a grant through school-only venues, which unfortunately as public libraries, you can't do as much stuff as schools. It's really, really annoying, but some things are school-only. But it works when you have a partnership. So call your local congressional district office. I've done that. I've had great conversations. Hasn't led to anything, but possibly one day it might be helpful. But it's a phone call, right, that they represent you. So hopefully somebody else has better luck than me so far, but I do feel like it's an avenue that I want to look into further, because I do feel like, there are representatives, and once you start speaking with them about what you're doing, like Analiza said, in your story, I do feel like they're really helpful in terms of finding different funding venues and partnerships even. Family foundations, huge category. I don't have a lot of experience, but I want to. Public library fundraising. You're a public library. There's no reason why you can't raise funds for a project through the public library. At least most public libraries are allowed to. And local CTE student internships. So career technical education, even though it was a local student that I worked with before, last spring we had through the local CTE high school, we had an internship with one of our local students for 70 hours, and he worked on a tactile DNA project. So it's great because generally they're unpaid, the internships, and the students get experience. Now it's possible that some of these students could get payment also, for working. So it's something that maybe through the new potential BBB grant, though I'm sure Stacy and Kat will be talking about soon. But it's just an idea of where you can get additional assistance through the local CTE high school. And very last, Analiza kind of touched upon this data. It seems like it's helpful to put in there. This was directly from our $11,000 award-winning grant, which I'm proud of, and just data we put in there. Was this overly helpful? Was this number one in kind of getting us the grant? Probably not, but they wanted data. Here's some real data that we found. So I guess it didn't hurt the application. So in terms of just kind of the way we were looking at data and presenting it in kind of a succinct manner. So there we go. There's my grant. So definitely some grants out there.
That was great. Thanks so much, Ian. All right. I think we should probably move on unless anyone has any burning questions about funding for Ian or Analiza or for us.